Let's learn about the constructors in Apex. So a constructor is a code that is invoked when an object is created. So constructor is invoked whenever the object of the class is created. So I'm on the class that we created, and we also created the object for this class. Now to call the methods, we were using the object dot and then the method name. So we were explicitly calling the method. But in case of constructor, as soon as you create the object, the constructor is being called. So you do not need to explicitly call the constructor. Now let's see what is the syntax of a constructor. So suppose we have a class with the name ABC. Now, if you want to write a constructor for this class, what you have to do is you have to give the access modifier, and then the name of the constructor will be same as that of the class. So you have to make sure that the name of the constructor is same as that of the class, and then the brackets. Now you can decide that you want to give the parameters or not. So you can give the parameters also, or you can keep it empty as well. Then the opening and the closing braces, and then inside the constructor will be the body of the constructor. So if you have noticed, the syntax of the constructor is similar to the method, but it takes the same name as that of the class name. Also, it doesn't have the return type. So I did not define the return type here. So it doesn't have the return type. Okay. Now there are three kind of constructors. The first one is the default constructor. The second one is the non-parameterized constructor. And the third one is the parameterized constructor. So first we'll talk about the non-parameterized constructor. So again, suppose we have a class ABC, and then this is the constructor. So if you're not passing any parameter to it, it becomes a non-parameterized constructor. Very easy, right? But if you pass some parameters to it, so suppose I am passing some parameters here. So instead of this, I'm giving some parameters, say integer, A, string, B. So then it becomes a parameterized constructor. Now what is a default constructor? So in my sample Apex class, we did not create any constructor. So what happens when you do not create any constructor? Apex compiler creates a dummy constructor implicitly. So we cannot see that constructor, but Apex compiler, it creates a dummy constructor implicitly. So we do not have to do much about it, but you should know if someone asks you what is a default constructor. So it is a dummy constructor which is created by Apex compiler. And the constructor looks like public, then the name of the class. So in our case, it's a huge name, big name. My sample Apex class. That's it. So it's a default constructor which is created by the Apex compiler implicitly, and we do not have to do much about it. So you can simply just remember what is a default constructor, and that is more than enough. Now let's create the constructor. So you can use the same class also, but I would like to create a new class for it. Well, I name it as my constructor class. Okay. Now we'll create the constructor. So public and then the name of the class. That's how we define a constructor. Let's put a system.debug statement as well. Okay, so this is a non-parameterized constructor because we have not given any parameters. So let's create, say, two constructor, one with one parameter and the second constructor with two parameters. You can give a Boolean parameter also. So let's give a Boolean parameter. Any data type you can give in the parameter. I'm writing the wrong spelling for the constructor. Okay. Now again one more, but before that, let me quickly check what is the error. It is showing some problem. Okay, now it has got disappeared. Fine. So we'll create one more constructor, and this time in the parameters we are going to give two parameters. So I'll give an integer rather. So integer a, and let's give the another parameter as string. Also, let's print the values. So plus a and then plus s, and above also I'm going to print the value. Okay, so we are done with creating a class which is full of constructor, and now we are going to create the object of this class, and we'll see if the constructor is called or not. So anonymous window, you have to take the name of the class in order to create the object. We have already learned how to create the object. So let's give it any name. So object created. Okay, now I'm not calling the constructor explicitly. I'm not invoking the constructor. So let me execute the code and see if the constructor is being called or not. Perfect. So a constructor without the parameters have been called. So this particular constructor has been called. So suppose you want to call, say, the second constructor, all you have to do is you have to pass the parameter. So as soon as you pass the parameter, it will automatically call the second constructor. Okay. In the same way, if you want to call the third constructor, which has two parameters, all you have to do is while you are creating the object, just pass two parameters and any string, execute. Perfect. So I hope you have got the concept of constructor. So we write the constructor when we want to do something, when we want to perform some operation as soon as the class is being called.